the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very, very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and of course Talkback is at midnight, and that is your chance to do exactly that. So you get the opportunity to talk back. What I want to talk to you about is Huw Edwards planning a documentary to relaunch his career. After 18 months of silence, the disgraced newsreader is expected to use mental health as an attempt to salvage his reputation. And as I was just talking to Peter about, I think that is just disgraceful. Plenty of people with mental health issues don't go on to break the law or to look at category A child abuse images. Most. So this excuse of, oh, I had a mental health crisis. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll ask you. Is it an excuse? Is it a good enough excuse to use the mental health card when it comes to the fall of this man? And what do you think about his attempt to come back? Do you think he could ever return to your screen? Would you tolerate it? The other question is, have you seen the drama on Huw Edwards? I watched it this afternoon. And I thought it was very interesting. I'd like to have seen more of him at work, but it wasn't really about him at work. It was more about his relationship with the 17-year-old. And I thought it was very, very good. And it really did paint him as being a monster. I mean, a bully, you know, using his power, and it is called power. But the downfall of Huw Edwards. He was furious about it. Apparently, he said they didn't consult him. You know, although at the end of the programme they said that they did. Look, I'd like to know if you saw it. I'd like to know if you think he could ever come back and what you think about the mental health argument. And maybe you agree that, look, we ought to cut him some slack. Maybe he did. He was known to have had depression. And maybe he was, you think, unfairly treated. I don't know, but that's up to you. So please do give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Right, the rest of the programme looks like this. Huw Hosken will be here, author and journalist, and my big brother. He's going to be going through the papers at 11 o'clock. Laura Reid joins us. We're going on a capybara hunt, if you don't mind. This story, have you seen? They're so cute. A capybara remains at large after escaping Marwell Zoo in Hampshire. So we're going to be chatting with the CEO of the zoo to find out how the hunt is going and why it's so important, and can they not live in the wild here, all of those things. So we'll be checking up on that. Dr. James Gilligan joins me to talk about Donald Trump's erratic and contradicting behaviour and what is going on in the mind of Donald Trump. We keep hearing the phrase, you know, that he always tacos out, he always changed his mind, he flip-flops. And in one speech that he gave, which I'll show you an example of a little bit later on, he contradicts himself 5 times. I mean, it's extraordinary, within minutes, seconds of each other, just complete contradictions. So what is going on in the mind of Donald Trump? It's a very important question at the moment. And that leads us on to our first topic this evening. And that is about the 15-point peace plan. And of course, Donald Trump was saying that we're in negotiations, they're going really well. Iran has said there's no negotiations, just swapping notes between countries is not a negotiation. They've asked for really serious things. America's also asked for really serious things. It doesn't look like there's much of a negotiation going on here. In the meantime, of course, Donald Trump is amassing around 7,000 soldiers in the Strait, so that there will be people there. So what's he going to do next? And don't forget that twice when Donald Trump was negotiating with Iran, he bombed them. So why would Iran believe another negotiation? You know, twice bitten, thrice shy. The US has not made public what exactly the 15-point plan is, but there are requests to dismantle its nuclear facilities and also to open the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, on the other hand, is now demanding that they control the Strait of Hormuz and start charging money for ships to go through. Well, Saudi Arabia will not accept that. And Saudi Arabia, of course, is calling for Trump to finish the job. So as much as Donald Trump says this war is over, it doesn't look like it, and it doesn't smell like it. So let's now discuss this further with Dr. Arman Mahmoodian, the research fellow at the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute. Arman, good to speak to you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. This confusion about whether there are negotiations going on or not, can you clear that up in non-Trumpian language?
Well, first and foremost, Patricia, thank you for inviting me. It's good to speak with you again. And regarding your question, it's there are some talks, at least that's both parties have agreed on or confirmed there been an exchange of message. However, the extent and the scale of the war talks, to what extent it was extensive and excessive, we don't know. What we hear from the United States, it seems that there is a very ongoing and productive and constructive talks with the Iranians. But what we are hearing from Iranian side, they narrow it down and try to kind of simplify to say that it just was an exchange of messages through the Pakistanis on the talks. And both have political incentives. For the American side, it is important to signal that there is a very constructive and productive negotiation ongoing. And the reason behind that, because a negotiation with Iran would send a positive signal to the market, specifically speaking, oil and gas market, and it calms the market. This, politically speaking, interests President Trump. So there is something in it for the President Trump to kind of be much more bold or maybe even exaggerate about the extent of the talk. Iranians have the very same interest, but in otherwise. Iran is not interested in calming the market until the war is over, because that's their primary leverage. So if they are in the talk with the Americans, they are not going to send a signal to the market that, oh, everything is going to be over tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. They have interest to narrowing it down, simplifying it, or even to some extent underestimating it. Which one, it can be one of these two or can be both, we don't know. What we know is that today the Iranian officials mentioned that they have rejected the 15 points. But we have also, right after that, seen White House's spokesperson who tried to kind of ignore that and try to kind of, show that the Iranian rejection of the 15 points to some extent insignificant or even question the validity of the source and the news. I think they both still have the interest for the very same manners. The Iranians are not interested to send any signal that the war is over until it's really over, and the Americans are otherwise. But one of the issues that we have over here is there are things that it seems to be in 15 points and in the counter 5 points that the Iranian give. That's another news. Iranian also seems to gave a counter proposal of 5 to 6 points. There are common grounds, I think, over the issue of the nuclear program. They are reaching a common ground, but there is an extreme level of conflict of the view over a couple of other matters, specifically speaking the missile program. On the missile, the United States wanted to impose a gap of 1,000 mile, 1,000 kilometer of range. Iranians are not interested. Israelis have a different view. Israelis want to completely remove the Iranians' ballistic missile program. It seems like that. So this is something that, they kind of, and they may or may not be able to, reach a common ground over. What we have to wait and see.
But it seems to me, anyway, looking at the demands on both sides, that they are both asking for unreasonable things of each other. In the same way, when you look at the Russia-Ukraine deal, apparently, that Russia is demanding things that it will never get. It seems like the Iranians anyway, their demands to control the Strait of Hormuz, which the region will not tolerate, their international waters for a start, reparations and damages paid in full by the Trump government, the idea that all the air bases and army bases are removed from the region. It's almost like Iran is saying, we're not ready. This is not a negotiation. We're telling you things that you will never give us.
Well, Patricia, your points are very valid, and no one can really argue with it. But how would I answer it as an answer to your question? I would say there is two issues we should keep in mind. First is let's say that the setup of the negotiation when they began right in the wartime. In wartime era, which is applicable to current war, the Third Persian Gulf War, and also the Russo-Ukrainian war, usually parties enter the negotiation with the maximalist demands. And there is another thing that influences, specifically speaking, this war, the Third Persian Gulf War, is the matter of that. I believe both parties, they think they are having the upper hand, or they're having a momentum. For the Americans, well, the logic is very valid. U.S. is a superpower, accompanied by another great power, Israelis, and they have absolutely a symmetry of warfare in their favor. For the Iranian side, it seems that they kind of came to somehow conclusion that the pressure on the global economy, which basically they are taking it for hostage, and the recent rate of the attacks against the Israelis, which mostly is against civilian areas rather than the critical infrastructure, but it's the heat. They are giving them a pressure point, a pain point. And specifically speaking, after the attack that they made against the Qataris LNG. So they think that now they have something to actually give them not only confidence and actual leverage. And that makes things very complicated. When you are having a negotiation that both parties think that if the negotiation fails, it's still on military ground, they have so much to do to pursue the other party to give in, that makes the negotiation much harder, much more prolonged, and to be honest, has a potentiality to prolong the war to unnecessary extent.
Yeah, because looking at next stages, I find it really interesting that Donald Trump is still using the language of threats against a regime that just mocks those threats, because as you said, they've still got leverage, they've still got a way to go. They can still destroy desalination plants, they can still destroy the oil markets. They've got a lot to go in that playing field, right? But Donald Trump is saying, look, if you don't agree to my 15 points, then we're going to bomb the hell out of you. We're going to unleash hell on you. What would the Iranian how would the regime take that threat?
I think the regime is trying to the Iranian in the past been sending a message to the Americans that if you want a negotiation with us, you need to soften your language.
Show some respect, is what they're saying.
Exactly. That's actually the direct quote, from position of respect. And in past, United States on and off actually tried, even President Trump, to give in. We have seen it prior to this war. President Trump, for a very short time, tried to, soften his language. But the thing about the President Trump is that he's really not a man of patience. And we have to also keep in mind, he's under the pressure, domestically speaking. So there is an election coming up very close. This war is not necessarily popular. It is popular among the MAGA voters, but the MAGA voters are only 30% of the voters, according to the poll. He still needs about 20% to go for the election. United States citizens are gradually feeling it. I live in Florida and feel the gas price. They say that if war continues for one more month, we can also see the impact of it on the price of food and other prices, because the price of gas makes an impact on the price of the transportation and vis-a-vis the price of food and everything else that comes with it. So I think that political pressure also is, psychologically speaking, making an influence on the President Trump, maybe makes him to be more prone to to have a temper or be more aggressive. he also may want to use this language on purpose to send a signal of the position of the strange to the Iranians that, you know, you did all of this, you took the global economies hostage and all, but I'm not going to budge in, and I still would deal with you as I dealt with you from day one. So one is that it could be combination. And to be honest, when it comes to sum it up, President Trump, it's very hard to actually understand the true intention behind his actions, because first he's vague about them, and second he keeps changing them.
But also, I was saying earlier on that the Iranians have got no reason to believe that these negotiations are in good faith, because twice now negotiations were carried out in apparent good faith and they resulted in bombing without warning. So it is understandable, is it not, that the regime, whatever that looks like now, would be very skeptical about anything that Trump says.
100%. But, you know, historically speaking, negotiations are happening or taking place out of two reasons. One of them is a matter of fate, and the other one is the force majeure or act of God. There are times that you don't have much of an option until negotiate, unless you negotiate. For Iranians, while they're having leverage and all, at the end they understand that this is a asymmetric war, and one party is the superpower, they are not, and other party has nuclear weapon, they do not. So, and one of the other things that the U.S. has been very keen, and Israel is to signal that the continuance of the war can come up at the cost of the life of whoever they are negotiating with. So if you're an Iranian negotiator, if let's say that you're Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf, the person who calls the shot the 2 days in Iran, you also do know that if the negotiation fails, you may be the next target, as Ali was, as Ali Khamenei was. So these are material incentive for the Iranians to negotiate. That would be a different question, that so can we rely on the deal that comes out of the circumstances such as this? That's a long-term game to play, and to, you know, we are way earlier on to, you know, to get there. So now,
how long is Iran prepared to keep going, do you think? Because obviously, again, we hear from Donald Trump that they've got no navy, air force, they've got no defences, and yet we're seeing a completely different story where, you know, that they haven't got any weapons left, they've got no, and yet they're still causing havoc around the region. How long can or will Iran keep going if they're going to be stuck in their demands?
This is a good question, and if the Iranian depends on whether Iranians want to continue the current tempo of the scale of the attack. You know, right now is at launching about 25 ballistic missiles to 30 per day. And they're launching them throughout the day. So it's not as a one strike. It means that in each strike, they are using 4 to 5 of the remaining launchers. They have about 100 launchers. Each time you take the launcher out to launch a missile, you get it to be exposed, detected by the satellites, air drones. If Iran wants to continue by the current scale, Iran, I believe, can maintain the current war and tempo for about a month with these ballistic missiles.
Yeah, and all they have to do is even just once a day lob something, isn't it? That's the position they're in. Another thing that struck me was the fact that Donald Trump is now declaring that there has been a regime change because they killed all of the people in the top of the regime. This isn't a regime change, is it?
Well, it could be a regime change, but it depends on whether the person who is leading Iran afterwards is going to be more radical or less radical. The regime change itself is not a positive thing for anybody, including the people of Iran and the United States. If Iran is going to be ended up by a military dictatorship who are, you know, just
so the IRG, yeah,
the IRGC, yeah. So I don't think so there's anything good come from it for anyone, but themselves by the IRGCP. We don't know. Yes, he has a point. The regime leadership has changed.
But the regime is still the same. It's still the Ayatollah. It's still a theocracy. Everything remains the same.
In terms of the appearance of the entity, yes. But in terms of the long-term impact, we have to wait and see what happens after the war. Because Iran is also at the risk of having an apparent theocracy, meaning the next Ayatollah wouldn't be as strong as the previous one. Ayatollah Khamenei was a strong figure. He had a good grasp of the power, who kept everyone on balance. There is a chance his son cannot do that.
Well, he didn't want him to take over, did he, actually? He wasn't convinced that his own son was the right person, apparently.
There are some rumors suggesting that he mentioned none of his relatives should be a successor of him.
Yeah.
But he also was the person who allowed his son to have great ties with the IRGC. So
yeah,
if he even wanted it, he was the cause of it.
The other question that I have for you is this gift that Iran has given to Donald Trump, this enormously expensive gift, a prize, present. Any idea what that might be?
Well, President Trump said it's going to be related to the oil and gas. What would be my bet is going to be either Iranian allowed few oil tankers to be passed from the Straits, or Iran has a relatively large tanker fleet on the seas. Then they have been doing this constantly. That those tankers are on the sea, always moving on the sea, and they carry oil and gas. The Iranian may have allowed some, because U.S. lifted the sanctions the day before that, may give or provided the Americans or the market with the cheap oil, or not necessarily the Americans, the other actors in an oil refinery, with the cheap oil or discounted oil. Or it could be honestly none of that. It could be just Iran selling its oil because the sanctions been lifted. So what President Trump would like to introduce it as a gift, but it's about oil and gas. Iranian also denied the gift too. So
yeah, yeah. And this is the problem, isn't it? That we can't rely really on either voice at this stage, and don't know exactly what's going on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Dr. Arman Mahmoodian, there, research fellow at the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie. And just a reminder, coming up, we're going to delve into the mind of Donald Trump. That's coming up. And then we're going on a capybara hunt. So I hope you're looking forward to that as much as I am. But coming up at midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. And I want to know what you think about Huw. I literally can't believe the audacity of the man. I mean, that's where I am with it. Huw Edwards thinks there's a route back to public life. He genuinely believes that he can rebuild his career. He's got a publicist out there. I don't know if you saw him being interviewed. We'll show a clip of that a bit later on. But anyway, so he thinks there's a way back. But that's not up to him. That's up to us, isn't it? Could you ever watch Huw Edwards on the telly? I mean, he's planning apparently a documentary to put his side of the story. This is a man who after seeing overwhelming evidence, pleaded guilty to viewing category A, B and C child abuse images. And he thinks there's a way back. He didn't, of course, go to prison. He had a 6-month suspended sentence because he pled guilty, presumably, and because he pled mental health issues. And that's another question for you. Is this excuse of, oh, I was depressed, I had mental health issues, is that good enough? It won't excuse what he's done, but could it explain it? And what I think about that is that plenty of people have mental health issues and they don't turn to child abuse images. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I cannot... Anyway, look, if you saw the programme, I'd love to hear from you as well, because I did watch that this afternoon. I'd love to hear what you think of it, what you make of it, and whether you would even entertain watching a documentary led by Huw Edwards, talking about Huw Edwards and trying to gaslight us into taking him back. I can't see it. I can't see him coming back. But then maybe you can. Maybe you're more forgiving than I am. But I don't know. Maybe you are. So that's coming up at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can also message, as many of you are already doing, 87222. Put the word talk up front. In the meantime, we're giving you the chance to win 20 grand. Completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it, give it to me. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie with you until 1 o'clock. Well, the shocking, erratic and contradictory behaviour, that's just some of the adjectives that are being used to describe the capricious US president's ways. And these look set possibly to be his ultimate undoing, with alarms raised even amongst the staunchest of the MAGA followers. Even though the world has got used to his unorthodox, politically incorrect actions and his inability to follow diplomatic decorum, Trump's behaviour seems to be so far out of control that even his biographer believes his base may stay away from the midterms. And on Monday, he contradicted himself no fewer than 5 times regarding his plans in Iran. In fact, I have a clip of that to play you right now. So he's insisting that they won the war and then said much remains to be done. So have we got that clip? Oh, you don't know, you're looking for it. Anyway, we'll find that. So what is actually going on in the mind of Donald Trump? Is he a genius that we're just not quite understanding yet? Or is he a fool? We have that clip. Here is where he contradicts himself, and you'll see the timings on this as well. It's odd behaviour, at the very least.
This is what I wanted to show.
Oh, this is I love.
This is the best.
I read this aloud to myself.
This is the best sequence of events. Friday's press gaggle, barely exaggerated. At 12:03 p.m., President Trump told reporters he wanted a ceasefire with Iran. At 12:05, he declared victory. At 12:07, he announced he was sending Marines. At 12:08, he said no boots on the ground.
How do you do that in 60 seconds?
At 12:11, he said he did not want a ceasefire. At 12:16, he declared victory again. At 12:17, he asked for a ceasefire. At 12:23, he told NATO they were cowards. At 12:29, he said Iran was begging for a ceasefire. At 12:31, he said everything was perfect. At 12:36, he said $500 oil was a good thing. At 12:37, he demanded Iran open the Hormuz. At 12:39, he said Hormuz was never closed. At 12:41, he said the U.S. was not at war with Iran. At 12:42, he declared victory in Iran.
Did you hear the next thing though? We've had some developments since this, where now it appears that we may jointly operate Hormuz.
Yeah. Well, sorry, you're wrong. Pentagon weighs deployment of air troops to Iran.
There you go. That's just an example of Donald Trump's mind. So where are we with him? Where is he with him? Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Dr. James Gilligan, a forensic psychiatrist and clinical professor of psychiatry at New York University, and also contributed to the New York Times bestseller, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. Doctor, it's really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. So there was an example there of Donald Trump, I presumably off script and just talking. What are we looking at there?
Well, we're looking at somebody who is so self-centered. He doesn't care about reality. He doesn't care about truth. He engages in wishful thinking rather than rational thinking, or thinking based on facts or experience. He is clearly the most dangerous leader the United States has ever had. And as a result, he may well be the most dangerous political leader in the history of the world, because this is a world in which we have thermonuclear weapons. And we cannot overestimate the danger of having a psychopathic leader, which we do now.
But I mean, does he know? I mean, this is the other thing that I find extraordinary, that nobody appears to question him. Does he have any understanding that what we just showed there was completely bonkers, that was completely off the wall? Does he have an understanding of that?
He doesn't care. I think that's the main issue. All he cares about is, are people bowing down to him and paying tribute to him and complimenting him and admiring him and so on. That's all he cares about. On the other hand, I would add to that he feels the way to achieve that is by means of power, and he believes that the means to achieve power is through violence, ultimately. That means threats of violence, but ultimately being able to back that up with real violence. That's why I say I think he's the most dangerous political leader we've seen in modern history since Adolf Hitler. However, he is incomparably more dangerous than Hitler because the U.S. now has thermonuclear weapons. Hitler didn't. I mean, Trump or his administration could do more horrible damage to the human species, in 20 minutes than Hitler could do in all the time he was in office.
But has he got nobody around him? I mean, particularly, we saw him humiliate the Japanese leader. We've seen him humiliate Zelensky.
Yes.
Is nobody sitting with him and saying, listen, Donald, that's not right? I mean, a lot of people, MAGA would go, oh, it's great, look at him, he's completely different, he's off the wall. We trust him because he's so honest, he says what other people are thinking. But does nobody ever talk to him and just say, look, when you go off on a weave, it's really weird and you shouldn't do that?
Anybody who disagrees with him, he simply eliminates from his administration. He had more people who disagreed with him in his first administration. Now he has succeeded in getting a group of people who do not dare or do not want to contradict anything he says. And again, that only adds to the danger to a tremendous degree.
What damage is he doing to the world in terms of trust? Not in terms of actual physical damage, but in terms of diplomacy, trust. Even people like me, a long-term journalist who's finding this behaviour and this constant contradicting himself really difficult to keep up with.
Well, let me say, he has a paranoid mindset, which is the idea that he is surrounded by enemies and that the only way he can protect himself is by means of violence against them. And the problem with paranoia is it produces self-inflicting prophecies. So he predicts that people are against him, and then he acts in a way that makes people against him. That is the way of dictators. Hitler did the same. I keep referring to Hitler because he's one of the people that Trump and his supporters, have often either admired overtly or simply used the rhetorical and political strategies of. And that's what Trump is doing in America now. He is eviscerating the Congress, the legislative branch of our government, the judiciary. He monopolizes the executive branch. Those are the three branches of our government. He is going out of his way to destroy democracy in America. And the fact is, what is alarming is how far he has succeeded in doing that so far.
And how quickly.
I think this is a danger to the whole world.
A lot of people would be listening to this and saying, have you actually sat down with Donald Trump and been able to do a proper measure of his mental health? Have you been able to do that? And others would accuse you of TDS. I get accused of it all the time. Anybody that disagrees with Donald Trump has Trump derangement syndrome. I tend to think people who agree with him entirely have Trump derangement syndrome. But but have you ever been able to diagnose him, or do you just not need to?
I wrote an essay that came out in a book that I was part of, which said the issue was dangerousness, not mental illness. And what I meant by that was most mentally ill people are not dangerous.
No.
And most dangerous people are not mentally ill, at least in terms of the criteria that are used by the legal system and the mental health system. Trump has what is called, I have no question about this, a major character disorder. There are a group of overlapping disorders, which often really are just different versions of the same thing. A narcissistic personality disorder, a paranoid personality disorder, an antisocial personality disorder, an authoritarian personality. I mean, he has all of the characteristics of all of these things. My sense is you don't have to examine him personally to work out a psychiatric diagnosis, and I've not done that. But the thing is, I don't need to do it because he is so clearly part of the syndrome that I would call the shame-driven personality. In other words, he's hypersensitive to anybody who disagrees with him, which he experiences as a humiliation. And he wards that off by trying to humiliate other people as much as he can. We've never had a president, and very few leaders in the world have engaged in such gross, vulgar insults and humiliations to other national leaders. I mean, this is off the scale.
Yeah, it is extraordinary behaviour. I just wanted to come on, before we run out of time, on to many people now are talking about an additional issue with Donald Trump, and a lot of people are suggesting that he has frontotemporal dementia. Now, my younger brother has that. So I am recognising a few things, the grandiosity, it's not really, they're lying, but they're not lying because they think it's the truth. Is that what I'm seeing with Donald Trump, or is that just part of his broader personality disorders as you see them?
I would say, look, I'm not saying that does not exist. I have not examined him, given him mental tests, psychological tests, to question his cognitive abilities. If you hear what he says, of course you have to say, this is somebody who's cognitively disabled and disordered. I mean, he constantly violates the truth. He violates reality. He has no respect for reality. But that is often the case with antisocial personalities. In the 19th century, antisocial personality was called moral insanity. And I think there's, in a sense, you could say that describes Trump, moral insanity. That is, he has no sense of the moral norms that have guided our world in the democratic world. He is a pure totalitarian mentality. He has said he expects and wants to be a dictator in America. He said that would be as of day one only. But of course, no dictator ever resigns on day two, and he hasn't either. He's talked about he needs to suppress the Constitution. America is at risk of the destruction of our democracy. I mean, that is really what I think we need to pay attention to. And that, of course, is dangerous to the entire world.
And just briefly, if you can, if he loses the midterms, will we see Trump unravel further?
You know, I can't predict the future. What I would say is I think he will do anything that he could get away with. I don't think he has any internal sense of self-restraint. And I think the only question is, how much can the other branches of the American government and the American people restrain him? Now, we saw in Weimar Germany in the 1930s, that civil society lost the capacity to restrain Hitler. I think we're in the same danger in this. I'm not saying Trump is Hitler, of course. They're different people. But I am saying we're in the same danger of losing our democracy to an authoritarian, dictatorial, even potentially totalitarian leader. I mean, even Hitler wasn't totalitarian at first. It took several years to achieve that. But and so Trump doesn't begin to have that amount of power yet. But I think we have to recognize what we're seeing here is somebody who is just as dangerous as Hitler was in 1933, before he, became as dangerous as he later became.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Thank you. I wish I had longer with you, but we've run out of time. Dr. James Gilligan, thank you, forensic psychiatrist and clinical professor of psychiatry at New York University. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie with you until 1 o'clock. And just a reminder, coming up at the top of the hour is Andrew Hosken. He's going to be here to go through the papers for tomorrow for you. But right now, we're going on a capybara hunt. A what, you say? Well, a capybara remains at large after escaping Marwell Zoo in Hampshire. Samba, the 9-month-old rodent, went missing last Tuesday, a day after arriving at the zoo, where she'd been transferred with her sister Tango from a wildlife park in Ipswich. Now, she was last spotted a few miles away from the zoo by the River Itchen between Twyford and Brambridge Garden Centre. Well, capybaras are the world's largest rodents and are semi-aquatic. So they spend a large portion of their lives in and around water, which is what makes it very difficult to find them, because they tend to, in the wild, they would use the water to cover up their scent and everything. So they wouldn't leave any scent around. I'm trying to be delicate. Often compared to guinea pigs, the mammals are known to be friendly and curious creatures, and they certainly are very, very cute. But they can get up to speeds of 22 miles an hour. That's faster than I can drive in London. They get a ticket in London. Joining me now to discuss this is Laura Reid, CEO of Marwell Wildlife, the charity that operates Marwell Zoo. Laura, what a clever girl she is so far to have avoided every single chance of capture.
Indeed. It sounds like you've really been reading up on your capybara knowledge there. So you can come and join us if you like and give the team a hand.
I'd love to. I would absolutely love to. One question that how did they escape? I mean, are they that smart? Are they that clever? How did they get out?
They're not. Well, it's more a case that they're able to squeeze through incredibly small gaps, as we found out. So obviously we've got set policies and procedures for when an animal comes into the zoo, and they always enter sort of a temporary holding area while they undergo health surveillance. That's just standard practice for biosecurity. And that enclosure had been signed off, it'd been checked in line with all our normal policies and procedures. There was no sort of reasonable way we would have expected the two to be able to squeeze through any of the gaps anywhere, but they have because they got out. So we don't, we haven't got cameras on the enclosure, so we don't know exactly where it was, but we've got a fair idea. But yeah, now all of the effort is into going to get her back, basically.
Now, Tango, I would have thought they would have stuck together, but Tango was found quite quickly.
Yeah, we're very surprised that they parted as well. So we sort of knew that they'd got out together, and then like I say, we recovered Tango really nearby, like almost next to the habitat. She'd just hidden away in some sort of some dense kind of bushy area. But clearly, Samba had other ideas and decided that this was her chance to be a bit more adventurous and go a bit further afield. So that's what she did, and that is now what's causing us the issue. As you said, quite hard to find.
Quite hard to find, because they try not to leave a scent behind, don't they? So that's part of their survival technique, if you like, and it certainly seems to be working.
Yeah, so we used a specialist dog unit in the first couple of days, and that those dogs did pick up a scent trail. But then lost it again. So exactly that. She's managed to evade us. So even if we even use the dogs down by the river, we probably just wouldn't pick much up because she's in and out of the water. And exactly that's what she's doing. She's covering her tracks.
What are the inherent dangers of her being out in the wild?
Well, there's very little danger to us. I mean, that's certainly, they're, as you've said, they're gentle animals, they're herbivores. So they don't pose any risk to the public at all. In terms of the dangers to her, the main danger is roads. Now, where we think she is, which is along a stretch of river called the Itchen Navigation, and in the water meadows there, we think she is, it's sort of best intelligence. There aren't any roads really nearby, and it's a very sparsely populated area. So from that point of view, we think she's fairly safe. There's no natural predators. She's got plenty of food. They graze on grass and leaf matter. So from her point of view, really the only thing we're mainly worried about, particularly tonight, is it's quite cold. It's getting down quite cold tonight. So that's our concern for her tonight. She should find herself some shelter, burrow in, get in some dense undergrowth. Survival instincts will kick in. So she should be okay.
I'm just thinking that she must be lonely. Must be confused.
Well, that too, potentially, yes. She's found a place that if she is in that waterway, which is where we suspect, she's found a place that she feels safe. They're semi-aquatic. They know they're safe in water. So, but they are social creatures. They are animals that live in groups, and so that is why we are, really, obviously, very, very determined to find her and bring her back and reunite her with her sister Tango.
And is there any worry? It's probably the stupid question. I know it is a stupid question, but just one that occurred to me, that if she did live in the wild, would there be any danger, because she's female, would there be any danger of crossbreeding with anything else, or?
No, that wouldn't be. We're not going to have a hybrid mix of capybara and other rodents running around Hampshire anytime. I don't think that's a possibility. She'd have to be very, very closely related to another animal, and obviously they're from different continents.
Yeah,
the native wildlife species that we would have here. So that's not something that's likely to happen.
And obviously the locals must be all be aware of Samba, and you have had sightings, haven't you?
We've had sightings, yes, and some of them have been incredibly useful. So the video that I think you recently played of a dog walker who disturbed her and saw her jump into the river and managed to catch that on video, that was incredibly useful. And that's where we then centred our search and have been ever since. But we've had lots of different sightings from the local area, but also a lot further afield, which are the ones that, unfortunately, when we've looked into them, haven't been able to be useful to us, haven't been credible. We have a lot of muntjac deer around our area, and they are about the same colour and same size. So from a distance, it's really easy to see how the public could get, could think, oh, that's her.
So she is quite big then.
So she's the size of a sort of small to medium dog, really. So muntjac deer are very small deer species. So she's, as you can see from the footage, she's not fully grown. So she's nowhere near as big as she will get.
Right.
So between a small and medium dog.
And is she likely to go further afield? I mean, are they a creature that chooses a habitat and stays there? Because as I was saying, they can run up to about 20 miles an hour.
They're not as territorial as some species of animal, but they are slightly territorial. And again, it comes down to that feeling of safety and security. So if she's somewhere that she feels safe, and the area we think she's in, she's got everything she needs, and it's also, she's not going to be disturbed a huge amount. It's not particularly, like I say, populated area. A lot of it is on private land, so you haven't got even people walking up and down the riverbanks very often, other than sort of the landowners themselves or their gamekeepers. So if she feels comfortable there, there's no reason or motivation for her to go any further. So it's not like she's likely to just roam vast areas. So that's why we're hopeful that we can get back out there with the drones. We've got camera traps set all along that area of the river, and the landowners have been really kind and cooperative with us in allowing us to access their land and do whatever it takes to try and make sure we can pinpoint her if she is in fact still there.
And have you got permission yet to use humane traps for her? Because I understand you have to speak to the Environment Agency about that.
Yes, so Natural England have given us a designation to be able to use humane traps. So we're looking at the deployment of badger traps that we and other wildlife charities would use for vaccinations of badgers. So yes, we can use those. We haven't deployed them yet because it does take some careful consideration, because you've got to think about what else might end up being trapped in those traps. So we just need to think that through and make sure that we're doing everything, we're doing everything we can to minimise the disturbance to our native wildlife as well.
I mean, bless her. I mean, it's quite an audacious escape, isn't it, really? I love the story. Listen, I really wish you the best of luck. I'm going to give the number out as well for you, just to make sure that if anybody is in the area there and they do have any sightings, you'd like a photograph or a video, wouldn't you?
Yes, really, yeah, absolutely. If you do see her, what is most useful to us is a photo or video, precise location, and just don't approach her. That's the three kind of golden rules that we're asking people not to do or to do. And
to just keep an eye out, because the colour of her, of course, at the moment, you could walk past her and miss her if she's burrowed in. So just look, actually, rather than just be a wandering by, just have a look out for her. It's brilliant to talk to you. I wish you all the best with it. I really do. I hope you find her. Laura Reed, CEO of Marwell Wildlife, and the number to call if you have any sightings, take a photograph, is 07436 167 401. 07436 167 401. Get out there and find Samba, because I'm sure Tango is missing her. Stay where you are, because it's the papers next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, it is Petrie here with you, and I'm with you until 1 o'clock, of course. And coming up at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. And I do want to talk to you about Huw Edwards, who apparently he's hired a publicist and is planning a comeback. Yeah, you heard it. The convicted paedophile is planning a comeback. And he didn't do jail time, as we know. He got a 6-month suspended sentence, which a lot of people went, ooh, why? Because what he was convicted for was viewing and downloading, and whatever the terms are, of Category A, Category B, and Category C child abuse images. Now, it appears that he is expected to use his mental health as an excuse or an explanation for what he did, possibly more than that. He's going to use it as an attempt to salvage his reputation. And I find that absolutely disgraceful, to be honest with you, because there are plenty of people with depression. Plenty of people. I've had depression, and I was on pills for it. I didn't once think, oh, I know, I think I'll go and find some Category A child abuse images. It's an odd excuse, and it doesn't do people with mental health issues any favours at all to suggest that, you know, one thing leads to the other. I don't know if you've seen the drama of Huw Edwards' downfall. I watched that this afternoon so that I knew at least what I was talking about with this man. I mean, I followed it as we all did at the time. I thought it was very interesting. I thought that it showed him to be really quite an obnoxious bully, but I'd heard that about him before that anyway, before any of this, in fact. There's all sorts of gossip goes around in the media world about, oh, you know, Huw, he's right, you know. So we all hear about each other. So I already knew that about him, or at least I'd heard that about him. And Martin Clunes was brilliant. I think he should win an award for it. He really beautifully underplayed the role, I thought. He could have overplayed it, he could have gone a bit, but he didn't. He played it so well. I would be very surprised if he doesn't win something for it. So I want to know from you at midnight, can he be forgiven? Is this forgivable? Is it possible that he could, in some regard, make a comeback? Would you watch even a documentary that he is allegedly planning to put together as part of his comeback? And what do you make? I mean, for me, again, it's the arrogance of somebody like Huw Edwards. Just go away. You've earned more money in 1 year than most people will earn in a blooming lifetime. So go away. You've got money. Just disappear. You were lucky not to go to jail. Shut up, go away, and let us all forget all about you. But no. Ego comes into play here. This self-righteousness, this, well, I don't think it was mental health. I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't my fault. It's that attitude that I think that I find the most grotesque, actually, of all. But I would love to talk to you about it and find out what you think. Do you think maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, that maybe, mental health is a good enough explanation, if you like, for what he did? Or do you believe that would you tolerate it? That's the thing. I mean, he might want to come back, but it's not up to him, it's up to the viewing audience. So I'd be fascinated to know what you think. Is there a route back for Huw Edwards? He seems to think there might be. He seems to think you might forgive him. So would you? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the national rate. And we do call you back though. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Is the mental health card going to work for him, and should it? Let me know. Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this and the papers of the day is, I've got to look his name up because I don't know it. It's Huw Edwards, my big brother, author and journalist. He's a former BBC senior correspondent. You don't have to answer this, but you worked at the BBC when Huw was working at the BBC.
I did, yes.
Did you know him?
I came across him on stories, and I think he interviewed me in the studio a few times.
Right, right. And what was his reputation?
Well, a bit full of himself.
Yeah, that's
but that is not rare, for presenters at the BBC. A lot of them are very full of themselves, and they sort of get fawned over by the managers, and they get paid lots of money. I mean, he was on about £500,000 a year, which is pretty good. A lot better than a lot of us.
Yeah.
So he did have that reputation. He was considered to be very professional. I didn't know anything about these other things. I mean, there were rumours, other kinds of rumours about him, being rather too friendly with certain people in the newsroom, young men and so on. But apart from that, I never heard anything about it. I mean, as I said, I came across him, during my time at the BBC. I mean, I think he was at the BBC roughly the same number of years as I was.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah. I think he started in the late 80s as I did.
He did rather better than you, didn't he?
He did. Although I'd rather be in my place than his. Nah, to be honest, no question about that. No, but yes.
But that is a problem, isn't it? I mean, that tends to be a problem in most places. Actually, is that if you are the chosen one by management, it is very difficult for them to see anything you do, any behaviours like bullying or being rude to your staff. You don't lose your job over it. There's a lot of, you have to do a heck of a lot to get fired.
At the BBC, unfortunately, there is a culture where bad behaviour by so-called talent, senior presenters and so on, is tolerated by managers, and they sort of have a self-supporting ecosystem at the BBC. I'm sure it's the case in other broadcasting organisations, but that's certainly the case. I think that sort of behaviour, and I saw some very bad behaviour by very senior presenters and reporters, that probably would not be tolerated now. I think things that I saw and experienced and witnessed and heard about would not be tolerated now. I'm sure of it. I think the cultures have changed. But certainly, the scale of his betrayal of the BBC cannot be overstated. It's difficult to imagine a greater scandal in some ways, because all my time at the BBC, he was considered to be the face of BBC News. Yeah. I was a sort of reporter, correspondent. I wasn't the face of the BBC.
You were the
News.
brains of it, though.
Oh no, naturally. I was just one of the minions and running around. But he was, he got the big state occasions, for 20 years. When the Queen died, it was Huw Edwards who announced it. He did the state occasion commentaries for the funeral, for the royal weddings, for these big news events, the wars and so on. He was the face of the BBC. The BBC invested millions of pounds and lots of credibility in Huw Edwards. And in the end, he utterly betrayed the BBC. And he betrayed his family, and he betrayed everyone who worked for him, and he betrayed everything that the BBC stood for. So, in my personal view, the best thing he could do was go back under his rock and stay there.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I think. But what do you think of the it's just plain hubris and arrogance to think that he could find a way back?
Well, I'm not sure what terms he is sort of dictating, or if he's in a position to say.
Well, he's got a publicist now.
Well, yes. I mean, I heard from a very good friend of mine in Fleet Street some months ago that he was thinking about setting himself up as a crisis management so no, thank you very much, Huw. So no, that's what I heard. So maybe this is. I mean, it's very difficult because he's mid-60s or whatever, early 64 years
yeah, but
old.
he'd get a big fat BBC pension, presumably.
He got a big pay. In fact, he refused to pay.
Pay back 200 grand.
Well, he did, which was also disgraceful. He actually got a pay rise while he was suspended, and then of course his new pension reflected that. So he refused to pay back the BBC.
He's probably getting a final salary pension, right?
Oh yes, he will have the gold standard final salary pension. Yeah, absolutely, which is denied by people coming into the BBC now. It's a very good deal.
So final salary, just to explain that, whatever your final salary was, you get that every year.
No, you will get roughly half of it.
Oh, roughly half of it.
Yeah, it's about
but that's
half.
Still 250 grand a
exactly,
year.
Yeah, if you're
pension.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he'll be on that sort of pension. Yeah, absolutely. So
250 grand a year.
So it's not
pension.
a bad pension. Of course,
plus a state pension.
It's taxed.
Yeah.
Well, he won't get that for another 3 years.
I know, but he'll have that as well.
But I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to swap places with him or be him. I mean, you have to remember what the Crown Prosecution Service said about him, that among these 41 images were Category A images, of 2 of which were of a child, moving images of a child between age 7 and 9.
And these are the very worst images as well. These are not just penetrative sex, that's B. These are all sorts of really nasty things.
I can't imagine what they contain, but the average age of the children were between 12 and 15, so really disgusting. The idea of him making a comeback is preposterous and ludicrous, and there's a...
But there's a certain arrogance with it, isn't there, that comes with these people?
I think he's almost certainly got mental issues, that... and I'm not a psychiatrist. I mean, this is the problem with you when we talk about Donald Trump.
Yeah,
you get to a point where actually you're going to have to say, I'm sorry, you're asking me questions I'm not qualified to answer. You should ask a psychiatrist. I mean, I definitely think that is the case with Donald Trump. I think it's definitely the case with Huw Edwards. I don't think it's very sensible to try and get in these people's heads.
I did interview a psychiatrist about Donald Trump.
You did, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I was struggling to keep up with all the medical terms.
Yeah.
But with Huw Edwards, yeah, I mean, of course, it's outrageous that he thinks he can rehabilitate his reputation. I mean, one remembers the sort of good old days, the 1960s, when John Profiumo, for example, who was the defence minister, lied to Parliament about I mean, it seems pretty small beer these days. I mean, he basically had a fling with a girl, with a woman that the Russian attaché also had a fling with.
Yeah,
he lied about it in Parliament, and then the man spent decades of his life cleaning out toilets for an East End charity, and kept his mouth firmly shut. And actually got an award for his charity work later on, many decades later on. He kept his mouth shut. He realised that he was toast in terms of public opinion, and he worked to try and redeem himself. The idea that Huw Edwards can sort of come back and be another TV star is a pathetic joke. Really is. I mean, it's beyond belief, really. I mean, if I were to give him any advice, if I could bear to spend any time in his company, I would just say, well, don't do anything. Go and work for a charity. Try and work for do some good. Try and make amends for the crimes that you've committed, because they are among the worst and most disgusting crimes. That,
they really are, and society is not.
As the Crown Prosecution Service said in September 2024, when Huw Edwards was convicted, that when you view these images, you are actually downloading and replicating these images, and that in their words, this perpetrates the sexual exploitation of children. That was in the words of the Crown Prosecution Service, and it's very hard to disagree with them. So really, speaking of one of his former colleagues, I would urge on him Clement Attlee's advice, which was to one of his more noisy colleagues, was a period of silence on your behalf would be greatly appreciated. And I think Huw Edwards' period of silence should last until really the end of his life, in my view.
No, I completely agree with that. Yeah. Just finally on Edwards, it's really sticking in my throat, actually, about him trying to mitigate what he did and what he confessed to after overwhelming evidence, to use mental health to mitigate his behaviour by saying, well, I was depressed. I think that doesn't do anybody any favours who suffers with any kind of mental illness.
Well, when the Crown were considering his sentence, they did. The part of the mitigation was, because it was reduced to 6 months, suspended sentence. It was suspended for 2 years, and then of course he was put on the sexual offenders register for 7 years. They said that mental health was taken into account, so we know there was a mental health issue, but we don't want to know. We don't want to hear about why he downloaded these images. Subsequently, only earlier this year, there were other allegations that have come out regarding the relationship that he had with the young man who he got these images from. It becomes more and more seedy and unpalatable, really, and I don't think people really want to know his pathetic excuses for his disgraceful behaviour. There is no excuse for it. I mean, yes, we already know he had mental health issues. Fine, thank you very much. The mental health reports were submitted to the court. They were read out during the hearing. They were made available to the magistrates and so on.
And he went into an institution, didn't he, as his wife came out and
his wife, I mean, when he was...
Vicky.
His wife, of course, yes. It was actually the son, of course, that broke the story.
Yeah, it was.
About Huw Edwards back in July 2023, I think. So this was... a little more than a year before he was convicted. But
if you remember, they didn't name him they weren't allowed to name him because for various reasons, the son, and so there was a bit of a witch hunt. I remember even in here we were going, well, who is it, and we all knew,
the BBC really, as you would expect, completely screwed it up, because they said, oh, we've suspended that person, whoever it is, but we're not going to say who it is. Well, and then you had all these other presenters say, well, it wasn't me, me.
I'm still on air.
Yes, well, and then of course the longer Huw Edwards and other people weren't on the air, it became obvious that it was probably him. And then of course his wife, his poor wife, who your heart does have to go out to, and his children, 5 children,
and his mother.
They are innocent victims of his stupidity. She was the one who actually sort of said, he's in hospital receiving treatment, presumably for mental health issues. So it is a family tragedy of the most awful. I mean, I can't even imagine the impact it's had on his family. And you have to.
And you would have been so proud of being in that family, wouldn't you? Before all of that, and his mother apparently was so proud of her son. And then suddenly you're confronted.
He'd come from Wales,
from nothing,
He'd become a political reporter at the BBC, then became newsreader, and then became the sort of face of the BBC. I mean, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, and I mean, that's why it would. I mean, I haven't seen this drama by Martin Clunes, and part of me, I mean, I'll maybe one day I'll get round to seeing it. I mean, it's a bit like sort of Jimmy Savile. I mean, there's been documentaries on that I can't bring myself to watch, but nevertheless, I'm sure it is good. But I wonder if that gets across the tragedy he's had. I mean, it was certainly for his family, and I mean, the shock to the BBC was immense. I can't think of a greater shock in all my time at the BBC than the Huw Edwards story.
Well, and yet Tim Davies survived that.
I think...
Well, that was perhaps the beginning of it tumbling.
I don't think it was Tim Davies' fault. I think there were aspects of it that could have been handled better, but I think it was an impossible situation. I mean, there were, of course, reports and rumours and so on. I don't know how substantiated they were about complaints made about Edwards' behaviour, but certainly, during the years that Davy was the DG, how far they got up the ranks to him, who knew what and where. But I'm sure what I do know about the
people
BBC,
did know.
but the BBC, I can say with great confidence that the BBC had they had an inkling that any of this was going on, would have had him out the door pretty quick, definitely. I think they mishandled it, and certainly the sort of Dance of the Seven Veils that revealed his identity in July 2023 was just a ridiculous piece of incompetence by the BBC. But I think in the end, I think it was an impossible situation for them to deal with. And in the end, he's gone. I mean, the idea that he got a pay rise while he was awaiting trial, I still can't get my head around, but nevertheless, it was a very difficult situation. I mean, I criticise the BBC when I think they deserve it, but I think with the Huw Edwards thing, it was a pretty difficult.
Yeah, but
tricky
it speaks to the overall sort of culture there that somebody, okay, not the paedophilia necessarily,
No,
but certainly, like you say, the bit I've been in places where I obviously can't name people where I've known that a male presenter has been harassing young producers.
Oh yeah,
and
bosses too,
and bosses doing it as well.
Yeah.
And likewise with young women being harassed as well. I mean, in very serious ways, and complaints being made, but because they bring the money in, one particular person has now lost their job, but only because some of the cameras caught him doing it. But there had been complaints where these young men had been saying that this is happening, and they had ignored it because he was a big cash earner. Yeah, and that's wrong, and that wasn't that long ago either.
No, I know of instances like that happened at the BBC where there was an attempt to cover things up with managers, and I remember one manager, there were two women on the same programme who he was bothering and harassing, and they were told that if they wanted careers at the BBC, I mean, we're talking about 20 odd years ago, they should keep their mouths shut, and they didn't, to their credit, and the guy was forced out, but he was made redundant. He wasn't fired. Yeah. His job was made redundant. He was given a cheque to go, so he wasn't dismissed as he should have been, and there was plenty of evidence for it. But the culture, I mean, I have to say the culture has changed. I mean, the problem with the BBC, as with other broadcasting organisations, money, power, fame, they're very big tests for the human being, and very, very few people pass those tests, I'm afraid, in my experience, and certainly Huw Edwards failed them on all accounts. I think possibly he felt that he was in such a position that he was so untouchable.
That's what happens, that's what happens to them all.
Happens to idiots like Huw Edwards, frankly. It doesn't happen a lot. Most people, most senior, even some of the more unpleasant presenters at the BBC managed to have very successful careers and not fall to such depths as Huw Edwards.
Yeah, but the trouble is, the bigger they get, the more arrogant they get, the more they believe they're untouchable.
That can be the case for some, for some, definitely,
right, so that's what we're going to be talking about at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Andrew and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Huw Edwards, author and journalist, and former BBC senior correspondent. And on the front page of The Sun, of course, would go with this, because as you rightly said before, they broke the story of Huw Edwards and the 17-year-old for which he had no criminal charges. But the Sun broke that story, and the front page here is asking a pertinent question.
Well, because the judicial system thought that he should get a suspended sentence rather than an actual sentence, and I think they would have taken into account his mental health issues, the fact that he hadn't committed a crime, he hadn't committed a crime, and those were the sort of mitigating
with the 17-year-old
with the mitigating factors. But
he did commit a crime in downloading those.
No, he committed very serious crimes.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. It's at the end of the day, it's do we want to clog up our overcrowded prisons with people like Huw Edwards?
The trouble is, Andrew, that justice is supposed to be equal, right?
Yeah.
And I just wonder if some scumbag from a rough old estate who had done the same thing and was paying for these images and doing all of those things would have been treated the same way as Huw Edwards, and that, I think, is the question: is did he get preferential treatment?
We will never know. That is.
But it might be in the back of their mind. They probably didn't deliberately do it, but psychologically, perhaps they did give him preferential treatment.
Had I been the judge or the magistrate, would I have put him in jail? Maybe, probably. I don't know. It's difficult. I think the thing is, it's very tempting to second-guess magistrates and judges, but they are given an enormous amount of information when they make their sentencing. So they get to see psychiatric reports, probation reports by probation officers, experts, the police. They look into his previous history. They talk to the doctors and all the rest of it, and then they come with a view as to what is the best way to punish this person and to serve the public interest.
They would have also presumably taken into account that his fall from grace was also punishment. That his public humiliation, that his brought upon by himself, would they have factored that in and thought, well, that's quite a big punishment?
A bit, not really. I think when they would have thought, as a human being, they would think, my God, I can't imagine a more humiliating, embarrassing situation to be in, to be a household name, to be somebody who was on the television night after night, being beamed into people's homes.
Yeah.
Sort of, presenting reports in a pretentious way about Jimmy Savile and other people, being reduced to being a sort of paedophile with his head in a newspaper, or going through the press pack into the magistrates' court, the humiliation on all the TV,
but he was also
former colleagues.
Very outspoken Catholic, wasn't he? He was always banging on about his religion as well, which is a hypocrisy.
Well, I didn't know that about him. I mean, he was very, noisy about all kinds of subjects, including himself. But I think that, they would have the key things for the judges and the magistrates would have been, and the police, how it is best to punish this man with the information that we have that will serve justice and will be in the public interest. So, you could sit down 6 people around this table and they'd all come up with a different punishment. Whether it's 5 years in jail or a suspended sentence of 2 years or whatever. It's all so subjective, isn't it? But the role of the court and a judge and a magistrate is to be objective as possible and not to let their own emotions colour their sentencing, and, as I say, to serve justice and the public interest. And I think probably taking into account all the factors and the reports, and I say we don't have the information they have. I normally trust these people to get it sort of about right, really. From all the courts I've covered in the years.
I just wonder if we talk about it in the public interest, whether it sent out the right message. That's all. I don't know.
It's difficult. I think it depends who's receiving that message. I mean, certainly I can't think of it. I mean, the shame and the humiliation of being convicted for such degrading crimes. I mean, I couldn't live with that.
No, I couldn't either.
And the idea that he's popping his head up, a couple of years later, is pathetic.
It is
It's pathetic
and
It's
arrogant.
nothing more than that, really. Yeah, it's just embarrassing for everyone concerned.
Yeah,
I think.
it really is. Let's have a look at the Times newspaper.
Yeah.
Trump flies into a rage as
Yeah.
Iran rejects the peace plan and threatens to unleash hell. I mean, if he's talking again, if he's talking again of bombing civilian infrastructure, that's a war crime.
Where to start with this? I remember I was on your program 3 weeks ago and saying what a mess it was then.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess that's got a bigger mess now, and it's getting messier by the day. I mean, trying to sort of second guess Trump or to put any reliance on anything he says now is for the birds, isn't it? I mean, it's hopeless. I mean, if you were Keir Starmer and Donald Trump rang, I think I would just say I was out.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of speaking to the man? Because anything you say to him, he then sort of slags you off on his stupid social media site, or he goes back on 5 seconds later.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the sorry history of this relationship with Iran, you know, in 2018 you had the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was this treaty signed with Iran with the main powers, which included, you know, not only the United States and the UK, but also China, Russia, France, these main powers. And Trump walked out of it in 2018, right? So they know that, okay, so that was a deal that they had with America, and he had been president of the United States for nearly 2 years by that time. Then he's in talks with them again last year, and then he bombs them.
During the talks.
And they think they've got another deal in January, and he bombs them again, while they're also having negotiations. So the Iranian regime is an appalling, they're a bunch of gangsters, and they're not, you know, but there was a deal with them.
Yeah.
And the Omani foreign minister, and I think he said it again recently, said that they were on the point before this latest attack by Israel and America of saying, yeah, we won't build any nukes, and having full inspectors in, and then of course the attack happened. So this regime, this awful regime, which keeps on being obliterated and having all their leaders wiped out, and yet he's still having talks, whoever it is who's still there. You know, the fact that that they can have any trust in any agreement with America. I mean,
because they get torn out. Well, we've seen that with trade agreements, haven't we, as well, around the world.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not difficult to see that you know, signing up to things like the United Nations or some of the health of the World Health Authority, you know, all torn up. All the agreements that Donald Trump doesn't like anymore, they just get torn up.
He
why
forged the greatest. Yeah, he this fantastic trade deal with Canada and Mexico in his first term. He walked out of it unilaterally.
His own
I think
deals.
I think the Canadians are still suing him over that. The tariffs go in and out and all this. It's absolute chaos. I mean, I don't think no one has seen anything like this.
No.
We are watching the humiliation of the greatest power, the slow motion humiliation of the greatest power on earth.
I mean, look at the way he
America.
treated the Japanese leader the other day.
The whole thing is embarrassing. I mean,
Pearl Harbor.
Every time he's on TV, I just feel embarrassed for America.
Yeah.
It's just embarrassing. He's all over the place. There's a wonderful cartoon by one of my favourite cartoonists, Nick Newman, and it has these generals overlooking the maps on the table like generals do, and the caption is, the one general says to the other, "The objective is to find an objective." And this sums up the entire Iran war with me. For example, now they're talking about the opening of the Straits of Hormuz. That wasn't a military objective because the Strait of Hormuz was already open.
It was already open.
It is now closed because of the war. I mean, it's a bit like sort of, I don't know, kicking over a Ming vase for no apparent reason, and then saying the objective of that was to glue it back together again.
Yeah.
It just strikes me. I mean, trying to keep up with it is beyond, I think, most commentators now. And
I can't. My brain just fries every day when I go, right, I need to be up on this. I need to figure it out, and it's just exhausting.
They've been obliterated. All the leaders have gone. Yet we're still speaking to the leaders, and we haven't obliterated them. there's talk about these Marines moving in to
and the parachute. I mean, there's 7,000 amassing, and why would Iran believe them? I mean, it is. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, my feeling. I've said it for a couple of weeks now that he's going to take Karg Island, but there's been some mention of a proper approach onto the Iranian mainland, which they haven't got enough troops. They'd need 30.
Well, if you consider when they invaded Iraq, they had 500,000 men.
Exactly, I mean, they would need that.
Yeah, I just
at the least. The 7,000 isn't enough.
It's difficult to know whether it's a way of applying pressure, or whether it's actually, the start of a potential ground invasion. Yeah, I mean, it's looking worse by the day, frankly, isn't it?
It really is. Quick break, and Andrew and I'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, you're with Talk and with Petrie, and with me, Andrew Hosken, who is an author and journalist, a former BBC senior correspondent. Just before we turf the Times, because I haven't had a chance to look through the other papers, something major happened today, which, although is on the front pages, really didn't make it into the news. I didn't see anyway. The Most Reverend Dame Sarah Mullally was installed as Archbishop of Canterbury, the first woman in its 1400-year history.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story when you think that the first C of E vicar was only ordained 30 years ago in 1994. The first bishop,
female
bishop, suffragette bishop in 2015, and now 10 years later we have the Archbishop of Canterbury is a woman, and she's an extraordinary. I mean, that's over 15 years. So St Augustine arrives in the 6th century to convert the heathens of southern England at Canterbury 1500 years ago, and then we go through the Reformation. Thomas of Becket being killed by Henry II accidentally on purpose, and all the rest of it, and then we end up, over 100 bishops later. She's the 106th Archbishop of Canterbury is a woman, and she's an extraordinary woman because she was
an
a
award-winning nurse.
She was a nurse. She was a chief nursing officer.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's an extraordinary person, and
I think she'll be really good for this role.
Yeah, because Justin Welby, of course, had to resign for his failures of a child physical abuse scandal that he didn't do enough to deal with, apparently, at the time, and he was forced to resign over that. A barrister called John Smith, I think, was the offender, and he was forced to resign over that. So she's taken over a sort of rocky ship.
Yeah.
But she's an extraordinary person, and chief nursing officer 20 odd years ago is now the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah, I think she's going to do wonders in the role, and I think it was. given the sex abuse scandals as well, I think it's a good thing that there's a woman at the head, and that may be one of the reasons.
So I think in 100 years of time, looking back on this day, they'll forget about Donald Trump and all this. No, this will be the historical.
This is the historical moment.
And there's great sort of questions for the Church of England. I mean, do we really need a state church? I mean, should it be disestablished? Of course, you know, Prince William has been sort of talking about his own faith recently, because, of course, rather absurdly, in my view, since Henry VIII insisted on being the head of the new church after he cut off Anne Boleyn's head, you know, the reigning monarch has been the head of the Church of England. I mean, is that really, you know, still applicable to these days? I think, particularly with so many faiths we have in Britain now, and Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs and all the rest of it. So anyway, that's something for her to deal with, and I'm sure, you know, she'll handle it.
Well, I think she'll steady the ship.
I think she's good news.
Anyway, The Mirror. Do your duty. This is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Oh, God. Sorry.
I know. Has a duty to be questioned in the US. I mean, I say question Donald Trump first, right? He's in the Epstein files more than
yes. Yes, I mean, he's still, despite being instructed to by Congress, refusing to hand over and agreeing
all
to
of the
himself.
files.
And, well, both houses of both Congress and Senate have said, and he's signed along the dotted line to hand. He still refused to hand over 3 million Epstein files, instead of which we've had all this sonne lumiere in the Middle East, which has distracted all our attentions away from the Epstein files. So yeah, there's it's funny in a way that you got Hillary Clinton being hauled up before the House to answer questions, and she never met him.
No.
And yet you got Donald Trump, who was his bezies apparently for 10 years at least, hasn't so much as put a foot into any dock to answer questions about Epstein. So there's that. But then we come to the issue of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who was I think he's still got the Mr. title.
I think he's still Mr.
I don't think that's been taken off. Although he's managed to hang on to his freedom in the City of London. So he can drive sheep across London Bridge.
Yeah, that's good.
But so that's maybe the City of London should look at that as well. But yeah, I mean, the question there is being asked that you know, this leading Democrat senator Jamie Raskin is saying, well, you know, why doesn't Mountbatten Windsor, what he's calling himself these days? I mean, it sounds like a made-up name as well. I don't remember the Mountbatten Windsors. I mean, they weren't even Windsor until World War I, as we know. But nevertheless, you know, he's saying, well, you know, he should get over there and answer some questions.
He's never going to do that.
I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think there's any sort of, you know, legal compulsion that
there isn't. They can't.
I can't see him. But he's got a touch of the Huw Edwards, I think.
Exactly.
Although, of course, I have to say, he's never been convicted of anything.
Exactly.
At all,
just being mentioned in the Epstein files doesn't mean you're guilty.
No, of course not. And he hasn't been convicted of anything or charged with anything, and that's important to say. But I'm just talking in terms of the sort of the sort of
entitlement, that attitude. I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
completely
absolutely.
agree.
Yeah.
The Daily Mail, AI bot told teen to use a hammer to kill his mother. Misogynistic son bludgeoned to death his mother following a chilling online chat.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. We've only got the front page, so it doesn't really go into too much detail about it. But it is chilling, to say the least. I mean, leaving aside the AI aspect of it, it's just a horrendous crime that he's, you know, bludgeoned to death his mum, and you know, apparently he asked AI for tips on which weapon to use, and it told him a hammer would be the best for a non-experienced killer. I mean, the thing about AI, it's not a person.
It doesn't think.
No.
It just tells you the facts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you would think, well, yes. I mean, I don't think I would need AI to come up with that one.
No.
I think, well, if I don't have a gun because I can't get hold of one, and I don't know how to use a knife or a hammer, you've sort of got a hammer or a knife, haven't you?
Yeah. It's an odd story, but you know, I was talking about misogynism yesterday.
But it's an appalling crime, awful tragedy, and the AI thing, of course, is the thing that that makes it a sort of a news story. I'm not entirely sure it's a lead. To be honest.
No, I would.
Taking into
I would
account
agree with
everything
you.
else
I think the
that's
story above it is more interesting. A very convenient theft. Guy Adams investigates the curious case of number 10 chief, his WhatsApps to Mandelson, and the handily timed disappearance of his phone. Now, this is Morgan McSweeney, who had been messaging with Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, about getting him the job or approving him for the job as ambassador. And when, of course, now the courts want to see, or the public and everybody wants to see these messages, his phone is stolen.
Well, yes.
It's probably a coincidence.
Yeah, Morgan McSweeney was the chief of staff, the Sphinx, for Keir Starmer was forced to resign or was dismissed earlier this year for various cock-ups, not least of which was his role in getting Mandy, who'd all been forced to resign twice when he was in the Labour government, to become the ambassador to America. And of course, predictably, it ended in tears. No surprise to most of us, when his links to Epstein became even more sort of, published through the release of some of the Epstein files. Of course, by the time he was appointed, everyone knew he had this relationship with Epstein anyway, and so did Keir Starmer, as was proved. So I think these WhatsApps on Morgan McSweeney's phone, because Morgan McSweeney, the sort of Svengali guru, was credited with winning the election for Keir Starmer and had this mythical. I met him actually many years ago when he was working for an MP in East London. I never imagined he'd become this sort of gigantic sort of political figure in Downing Street. But so these are WhatsApps, I think, that relate to Mandelson's appointment as the ambassador to the US back in 2024 after Labour won the election in July 2024. So what happened was that McSweeney, so after Mandelson got the Grand Order of the Boot in September last year, 2025, a month afterwards, McSweeney is walking around Belgrave Road in Westminster and gets his phone snatched out of his hand, and then he rings up the Met police. I mean, he so the phone's got a tracker on it, so he goes back to the office and they check the tracker and all the rest of it. Then he rings up the cops and reports it. But he forgets that he says it's a government phone, but he doesn't say that he's the chief of staff to the Prime Minister. So this is, so unfortunately and very tragically, he didn't back up his WhatsApps to the cloud. So apparently they're all on the phone. So of course, the Tories have been.
It's a fortunate accident.
Well, this sort of thing has happened before. I mean, one remembers that the hilarious sort of the Wagatha Christie, the so-called Wagatha Christie trial when Colleen Rooney was sued by Rebecca Vardy for libel. And her agent accidentally dropped the phone that contained lots of these important texts and WhatsApps or whatever it was into the sea, off Scotland, and of course, Colleen Rooney's barrister talked about the phone now being in Davy Jones' locker and even the judge said it was highly improbable that it was an accident.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's just say the timing is.
But that's what the Tories are alleging, and of course one remembers Boris Johnson. I mean, the Tories have got Boris Johnson, the COVID inquiry. Oh dear, I lost 5,000 WhatsApps.
Oh yeah. Happens a lot.
Oh yeah, update. It was an update.
I do it all the time.
I'm always losing. I'm always deleting thousands of WhatsApps and having it nicked just when everyone wants to have a look at it.
When everyone wants to look at it.
But this is of course what the Tories are saying. I mean, Morgan McSweeney is saying, look, I had my phone nicked. It happens all the time in central London. Unfortunately, I don't appear to have backed the WhatsApps up. But anyway,
let's just say it's a mystery and it's a convenient one. Quick break, and Andrew, I'll be back in a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is Huw Hosken, an author and journalist. Let's have a look at The Guardian. The Guardian, we need a thriving BBC. Now this is the new boss, the tech boss, Matt Britton, named as Director General. I think he was something high up in Google. Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a senior boss at Google, and which is also a subject of another story as well in America today.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. Matt Britton named as the new Director General to take over from Tim Davie, who resigned in November. You remember, over the cock-up over the splicing together of
Donald Trump.
Yeah. That made him look as if he was deliberately provoking people to storm the Capitol building in January 2020, which he did.
Yeah, it was a point that said it.
Which he did, and everyone knows that, and because he claimed wrongly and falsely that the election he'd won the election, which he hadn't, and provoked all these people, which he did. But the BBC spliced together to make him say something which he hadn't.
Yeah. Which they didn't need to do.
Fair cop, Gov, really. And Tim Davie and Deborah Turness, who was the sort of head of news, resigned. And now we've got 4 or 5 months later, we've got Matt Britton to take over, and I think he was head of Google for Europe and the Middle East, so he's a sort of big tech bro.
Maybe just what the BBC needs, to be fair, to bring it into the modern day, maybe.
Yes, there is that argument, and looking at, he's a very impressive figure, and his CV is extraordinary, and he's been a successful media sort of tycoon for Google, so he's very aware of the challenges the BBC has in this new technical
well, as long as it's not more of the same
with AI. The problem I have with this is, as with Tim Davie, talking as a BBC hack, is that he doesn't have editorial experience. And the other title, of course, of being Director General of the BBC is you're the Editor-in-Chief of the BBC, and of course and having knowledge of journalism and journalists and how they work and how they get things wrong and who to trust and who not to trust, particularly in the current BBC, where there are certain managers there I wouldn't trust and I think have been there too long. He's got to know who's to trust and who isn't. Now, there is talk of, alongside him, having a deputy Director General who would do the news bit and leave him to do the sort of strategic licence fee negotiations, tech, AI, all the rest of it that the BBC is going to have to get into, and having someone like that. And there is a precedent for that. There was, back when Alistair Milne was forced to resign as DG in 1987, the new DG was his deputy, who was Michael Checkland, who was also called Michael Checkbook because he was an accountant. He wasn't a journalist at all. He was a very nice man, a very clever man, but he wasn't a journalist. So his deputy was a very able guy, John Burt, who's now in the House of Lords. And Checkland and Burt worked side by side with each other. Checkland did the sort of big strategic stuff. Burt did all the journalism and restructured the journalism and improved it greatly, actually. I joined during that period, and he was sort of really sort of...
Can't get everything right.
Yes, absolutely. I sort of slipped through despite all that. But he was... And then, of course, he took over as DG after Checkland stepped down in 1992, I think it was. So there is precedent for that. But I still think, yes, it's great to have this very impressive figure, nice chap as well, he looks, and sounds very impressive and all the rest of it. But I think the only caveat is he lacks that editorial judgment. I think that's what let Tim Davie down in the end. Because, someone sort of said, look, mate, you can't do that. And you probably might be able to get away with it, but if you don't get away with it with Donald Trump, right, thin-skinned, thin orange-skinned Donald Trump, all the rest of it, he being very litigious, you're not going to get away with that. So there is a need. if he does get a wingman or wingwoman, in a way it's a shame we don't have a Director General woman, and we were long overdue one. We hadn't had one yet. So I talk about we as if I'm still at the BBC, but the BBC in its 100 years history hasn't had it yet, although it's had very capable women managers.
Yeah.
It hasn't had a woman DG. But nevertheless, this guy looks great on paper, but my only caveat is this lack of editorial judgment, and so that the wingman or wingwoman will be very important.
Yeah, be extremely important.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen, we've got about 30 seconds.
Oh, gosh, right.
Just very quickly, Meta and YouTube deliberately designed addictive products. This is a pivotal court case. Oh, it's 30 seconds now. Anyway, they're going to be sued for a lot of money by a lot of people.
Well, it looks like, they were found being found to have been negligent. These two massive groups, include Facebook and Google and YouTube and WhatsApp, all the rest of it.
It's a very big case.
So it will be a big case, and they'll be seen to see a test case perhaps for the rest of the world. It's about time.
It is about time, and people are lining up to sue them.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, thanks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you on Talk, and this is Talk Back, which gives you a chance to do exactly that. And I want to talk to you about Huw Edwards because he's back on the Sun front page because this drama went out yesterday, last night, which the night, you know what I mean, not last night, the night before, because it's now Thursday. But anyway, you know what I mean. And I managed to watch that before I came in to do my programme last night. So I watched it. It was called Power, The Downfall of Huw Edwards, and it is on Channel 5 if you've yet to see it. And I didn't really know what to expect from this drama, although I'd seen, obviously, like everybody had seen these photographs of Martin Clunes, who played Huw Edwards, I think, extremely well. I mean, really lovely performance. I mean, as far as it can be, lovely performance. Brilliant performance. But we're also hearing that Huw Edwards wants to make a comeback. He wants to come back to public life. He presumably wants to come back to television in some regard. He was Britain's highest paid newsreader. And as you will have just heard my brother and I talking about him in the paper review, talking about the fact that he was on, I think, £475,000 per year. His salary, his pension, which he can claim now, will be in the region of £230,000 a year. His final salary pension. Of course, that's taxed. But come on. Take the money, shut your mouth, and do one. That would be my advice to Huw Edwards. We're not interested. You broke the biggest rule of society, and that is you put children in danger, right? And he was found guilty. Well, he pled guilty, didn't he? Got a 6-month suspended sentence. The Sun today is asking the question, why didn't he go to jail? A lot of people are asking that question. And I do wonder if he had been anybody else, whether they would have gone to jail. It was the most serious of downloads of paedophilic imaging. And yet, he's employed a publicist who was on air today to speak. Look, I've got a clip of the publicist, Barry Tomes, seemingly defending Huw Edwards. But this is the publicist, this desperate need to get out there and sort of somehow redeem this character, somehow salvage Huw's reputation. It's extraordinary stuff. This is the publicist, Barry Tomes. There's no sound on this at the moment. We're going to try and figure out the sound. This was on GMB this morning, Good Morning Britain, this morning with Ed, what's his name? Susanna Reid. Ed Balls, and Susanna Reid this morning. We'll get back to that clip in a minute. But anyway, this guy, Barry Tomes, has taken on Edwards as a client. He said the man with the hardest job in show business, but the veteran publicist doesn't see it that way. He said, this isn't showbiz, it's real life. He contacted Edwards after reading about his case. It sounds like Huw has hired an agent to get back into TV to get his career back, but it's none of that. I'm not an agent for a start. I'm a publicist, and he never employed me. I approached him. He says, my motivation isn't money, Tomes insists. Nobody is asking, though, why did it happen? That is my motivation, to find out why Huw Edwards did what he did. We have a clip now of the publicist, Barry Tomes.
Well, don't forget, it's not, but let's get that straight. One thing, Barry, it's not a documentary, it's a drama.
No, that's a drama. I do apologise. I'm very sorry. I keep saying documentary. Yeah. It's a factual drama, in which case it should be factual.
Well, the victim, the young Welsh guy and his family, who first went to the Sun and told their story, they would say this is a fact. The victim has said it's a factual chronology of what happened between me and Huw Edwards. And if you watched the drama last night, if we're to take that as true, what happened between Huw Edwards and that kid was unconscionable. It was disgusting behaviour on the part of Huw Edwards.
And did you say if we were to take that as true? Is that what you said? I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
And you are right. I don't know the truth because I wasn't there. What I've done is, and I think it's a reasonable thing to do, I'm more than good to put my head above the parapet. This isn't a disguise. I'm letting people know I am what I do. I think there's a pattern that happens here, and I don't know why his employers didn't see it, why didn't people around him. If we can educate people, and if we can stop the next Huw Edwards or the next whoever, then I may have done something good here, and I don't want any money for it.
Weird, right? Just weird. Obviously, that was him on earlier with Kevin O'Sullivan, but he was also on Good Morning Britain, and it was very, very strange. I mean, I did recognise the man, Barry Tomes. I have met him, and I'm going to keep my powder dry on that. But it was just weird. You know, what we need to understand why it happened. Do we? And Barry's saying, well, if we can stop the next one. Well, do we need to I mean, I don't need to understand. I tell you what, I don't need to understand why he did it. I don't care why he did it. It's enough for me that he did it. I am not curious at all as to why. Are you? And the idea that Huw Edwards is now considering making a documentary to produce his own account of these terrible events, I find equally strange. We don't care, Huw. Go away. I don't. Does anybody care? Can he be redeemed? Can he be forgiven? Do you think that he should ever come back? Would you watch him on television if he did? Would you even watch his documentary? But the idea that he's planting seeds for a comeback, and like Vincent was saying yesterday, when we talked a few weeks ago when this Publicist photograph came up of Huw Edwards, this really sort of glamorous shot, we both went, oh God, he's planning a comeback, but not really believing that he would. But apparently he is. He wants to be forgiven, but not in a way of actually doing anything about it. He just wants to do a documentary. And Tomes goes on to say, people say he's using mental illness as an excuse, but he said it's not an excuse. It is, though, an explanation for doing irrational things. I've always tried to understand what goes on in people's heads, and that's my motivation with Huw. Who cares? I mean, the fact that he's thinking of using mental illness as an explainer, I think is so utterly wrong. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was depressed. Well, there's a lot of people who are living with depression right now who don't break any laws, let alone one of the worst in society. It's disgusting. He is disgusting. Do we need to know why he did it? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message, please, to 87222. Now, if you have not seen the drama, I've got a trail that I can play you now, just before we go into the break. The drama, which was on Channel 5 last night, or the night before, Power, the downfall of Huw Edwards. Here's the trailer.
Martin Clunes stars in Power, the downfall of Huw Edwards. Watch, stream on 5.
So there you go. I do recommend it. It is pretty good. I'd like to know what, if you did see it, what you thought of it. But more than that, it is this gobsmacking claim that Huw's trying to make a comeback, and he's got his publicist out there, and he's planning on a documentary to explain why he did what he did, hoping that we will go, oh, well, that's all right then. Do you think you'd be able to do that? I absolutely know, sure as eggs is eggs, that I wouldn't. I won't. Grace is in London. Good morning, Grace. How are you?
I'm very blessed, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very well indeed. Grace, what do you think of the potential for a comeback for Huw Edwards?
Yeah, he really is in a very deluded state, isn't he? I don't know quite how he's conceiving that anyone would want to hear from him again. And I think we also need to talk about the fact that this issue of viewing disgusting images of child abuse online is very widespread. I recently was hearing about the work of IJM, International Justice Mission, which is trying to deal with the fact that there are children, particularly in the Philippines, being live streamed to British viewers.
Oh, Britain is one of the worst offenders in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it'd be great if we could use this as a society to talk about how we tackle the wider problem. But yeah, Huw Edwards himself, I do believe that people can be redeemed and forgiven. As a Christian, I know that sounds nutty. I think actually that we can have forgiveness. We can completely change. But we can't just be forgiven or be redeemed just because we feel like it.
Yeah, just because we ask for it, right? I mean, like my brother was saying about Profiumo. Right after that scandal, he went and worked for a charity for decades, right, cleaning toilets and cleaning the streets, because he knew he'd messed up and he wanted to redeem himself. So, in a sense, he put his money where his mouth was, and worked to try and get that forgiveness.
I mean, what we believe in Christianity is that the reason Jesus died is because all of the disgusting, evil things that human beings do was kind of placed upon him. So it's not like it's just wiped away with no consequence. It's like the evil that human beings do necessitates some kind of justice. And I think the fact that we all kind of like to see justice in some sense. We might not be begging for people's blood, but we want there to be fairness somehow, to some extent. Shows that these things matter, and if you want to be forgiven, you need to be genuinely contrite. And I think that if a person really is contrite, then, like I say, they can have forgiveness and redemption. But I'm not seeing much evidence of that from Huw Edwards.
No, really not. I mean, apparently he's furious about this drama. Did you watch it by any chance?
I haven't done, no. I don't know if I should or not. I don't watch all that many dramas. I mostly just have politics programs on in the background.
It is good. I mean, Martin Clunes is terrific in it. He really is. And the young guy who plays the 17-year-old that Huw Edwards wasn't found criminally, had done anything criminally wrong with the 17-year-old, but it's very good. It is good. I mean, it scratches the surface, but then you would expect that, I think, in this sort of program. But you see the effect that Huw's behaviour had on this young boy, basically. I'd say it was worth a watch.
Well, I mean, we might see a dramatisation of it, but I couldn't begin to get one's head around how it must feel. It was bad enough being sexually harassed in school, to actually be abused in that way. I can't begin to imagine. And I think that, as I said, that there needs to be more discussion about how we can deal with this problem more widely. I don't understand, frankly, why.
I don't either. But I was reading the other day that either we are the most prolific, or at least in the top 2 of countries in the world for downloading child abuse imagery.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. It really is.
If Huw Edwards wanted to show any kind of remorse, he would flipping well give his money, nearly all of it, because I'm sure he's got quite enough saved up without needing this huge pension that he's getting and all these payouts. He should be giving as much as possible to the organisations that are working in places where there are particularly high rates. Like I said, that the Philippines has a particular difficulty. It just doesn't bear thinking about. Families in extreme poverty can be told, well, I'll give your child access to school if you let me take them and
abuse them.
Take them to school, and then ultimately these kids are put on camera, and we can make some degree of an impact if we support some organisations dealing with these problems, but it's such a horrific scourge on humanity for this publicist to be trying to pretend that he could somehow get to the crux of why this happened.
Bonkers, right?
It'd be great if we could slightly better understand how these things happen, but you're not going to work it out just by looking at Huw Edwards, because unfortunately child abuse is something that exists across the globe and has existed throughout history.
And across the social strata, across every single metric you want to use. I am gobsmacked. I'm flabbergasted that this publicist is out there trying to somehow soften the image of this man and claiming, I want to understand it. It's like, what is there to understand?
I sometimes think that it seems there are some people more often on a certain part of the political spectrum than the other side who seem to think that all the things that a person does wrong are the consequences of difficult circumstances that they've been through. And though I would also consider myself to be on this side of the political spectrum, I don't think that that's the case. I think that human beings can be evil. We are certainly impacted by our life circumstances. Some people absolutely have their behaviour contributed to by difficult things that they go through. But we can also, as human beings, all be
rise above.
Evil.
We can rise above. Yeah, a lot of people come from very difficult backgrounds, never commit a crime in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So it's we can all rise above those impulses. And Huw Edwards, to say that it was because I was depressed, I was going through a difficult time, many people live with that and don't go anywhere near criminality of any sort, let alone the most heinous.
I was never diagnosed with depression, but I felt pretty depressed in my teens, and then I developed an eating disorder for which I was eventually sectioned. And I can't imagine how, when you feel really badly about yourself, that would necessarily make you want to go and I can't see the logic of his argument at all. And I also think that because paedophilia is so egregious and disgusting and weird, the existence of it in our society and how much people end up talking about it kind of derogates from us discussing the other things that we ought to be worried about. I think some people kind of think to themselves, well, those people over there are so disgusting and awful that I'm great by comparison, and we might be far less criminal and awful than these crimes, but we've all got things we need to deal with and repent of and work on, and we can kind of forget about that because we've got this weird, disgusting crime that keeps popping up and distracting
and it does,
us.
and it is a major problem in this country. We were discussing this a couple of weeks ago, and it is so despicable. Honestly, it's 1,000 paedophiles a week are being arrested at the moment. I mean, it's huge numbers. Grace, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to take a very quick break because I'm late as usual. Thursday, the 26th of March. Unbelievable. Now, we're talking Huw Edwards. Because he was in the TV drama, which was called Power, The Downfall of Huw Edwards, broadcast on Channel 5. All it does really, it shows the relationship that Huw Edwards had with a young 17-year-old boy, and how that began, how the introduction was made, which is quite interesting. I won't spoil it for you, but so that was quite interesting. And then the arrest of another young man who was supplying Huw with with child abuse images. And you know, the messages that went between them, saying things like, oh, this is a young one, and this is all good, and Huw going, oh, good, send me more. Have you got any more? Or that one didn't play. Can you send me something else? So Huw wasn't... It totally shows that Huw wasn't a passive receiver of messages he didn't want. Because I know that some people say, well, you know, if it was sent to his phone, it's not his fault. Well, this drama displays the messages. This is all taken from the phones and stuff. So the messages that went between Huw and the child abuse image supplier. And it was, if you remember, when the story came out about Huw, it was, first of all, it was a BBC star has, you know, it has been taken off air, but they didn't mention his name. And then no charges were filed on that case because the boy was of age, not a man, but he was of age at the time. He was 17, and not a child in terms of he was legally allowed to do what he was doing. But anyway, he then, so that all went a bit quiet, and then the guy that was supplying the images was arrested, and they found the messages for Huw, and that was when Huw Edwards was arrested. So he was never arrested for his relationship with the 17-year-old, and faced no criminal charges on that either. But it was the other guy who supplied him with the images, but it does show Huw Edwards being controlling. It shows him, and this is in the view of the 17-year-old who shared his messages with the drama makers, and how Huw Edwards was a bully, frankly, and to a massive degree groomed this young guy, who then went on to take drugs, and I think Huw gave him tens of thousands of pounds to do certain things for him, and this fed the young guy's drug addiction. Anyway, Martin Clunes plays Huw Edwards in this drama, and he is really good in it. I mean, I've always liked Martin Clunes anyway. I used to fancy him in Men Behaving Badly. Funnily enough, I didn't fancy him in this, but he plays it so well. I mean, he genuinely does. There would have been a temptation, I'm sure, by other actors to have overplayed it. But if you want to hear what Martin Clunes thought about it, he was also on GMB, Good Morning Britain, yesterday, and he discussed his role in the drama Power, The Downfall of Huw Edwards. Here he is.
I mean, I appreciate he's upset by the fact that we've made this programme, but he would have reported on other downfalls, other people's disgraces. Yes. I mean, you know, I had the script. You just have to sort of get behind everything the script gets you. Do you know what I mean? Judging it wasn't on my list of things to do that day. Standing back and saying this is a terrible man doing terrible things, that's not my task. It's to try and inhabit what the script gives me of that fellow. I don't know, if anybody thinks it's too soon, don't watch it.
Mm. Yeah. And it's also, I
don't think it's too soon. I don't know what the timetable is for these things.
It's not too soon to talk about how powerful people can manipulate young people in order to get their...
Yeah, I didn't know this sort of caper went on with people, you know, PayPal accounts to do things over a telephone.
So that's Martin Clunes, looking like Martin Clunes, which he doesn't in this drama. So I would say watch it. I think we owe it to the victims to understand it from the victim's point of view. And this young guy, this 17-year-old, was, in my view, a victim. There may have been no criminal charges brought because of his age, but he was no less a victim of, as Martin and Ed Balls were just saying there, of a powerful person using their power, influence and money to make people dance to their tune. So I think we owe it to the victims to understand their take on this, and the fact that Huw Edwards is upset about it, I couldn't give a flying fig that he's upset about it, because that wasn't his story to tell. That was the victim's story to tell, and I think it is well told. I'm going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to come back. Sarah, I'm sorry to keep you hanging on, but I will come back and talk to Sarah in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, right now you're with Talk and you're with Petrie, and this is your Talk Back hour. Well, half an hour now. We're talking about Huw Edwards and the unbelievable disclosure that he genuinely thinks there is a way back. There is a way back to fame and fortune. He absolutely believes that. In fact, he had a publicist out today talking to anyone who'd listened to him about how Huw Edwards, you know, that there's an explanation for what he did. Couldn't care less. I don't care. What possible explanation could there be to viewing child sex abuse images? And behind every one of those images, there's a child being abused. You know, graphically, disgustingly. I mean, category A is, I mean, I once had to look at, I had to have a lawyer sitting next to me, by the way, when I did this. I had to get permission from the editor. I was at ITN, and was talking about it on the program that I was doing, and so I wanted to just have an inkling of what I was talking about, because I'm a journalist and there's no point talking about something if you don't know about it. And I was shown some of these images that you can't unsee. I can't even describe them to you. Most awful things, awful things being done to little children. And some of the images that Huw looked at, they were 7-year-olds, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Oh, I mean, and he thinks there's a way back due to mental health issues. I'm going to read some messages now. Huw Edwards is in complete denial and acting like he's the victim. As for his excuse, Huw can do one. In old money, I'm completely nuts and suffered with mental illness and depression, and not once did I think that looking at a child sex abuse image would cheer me up. Gary Glitter has more of a chance of a comeback. Huw is damn lucky he isn't in prison. That's from Andrew. So Andrew's exactly the same as me. It gets stuffed. We don't care. And this one from Andy: mental health is no excuse for his vile crimes. He should be in prison, not trying to make a comeback. I certainly won't be watching. Yep, me either. Sarah, who's waited for ages. Sorry, darling. Sarah's in Liverpool. Good morning.
Good morning, Petrie.
What do we think?
If he thinks he's got a way back, he's living in the world of Walter Mitty. I don't mean to be funny, but there's things you can come back from if someone's been in prison, you know, for what, you know, something that's totally... You've got... Ronnie Biggs would have better chance getting on the television, reading the news, than Huw Edwards. Because the most heinous crimes in Western society is the abuse of children. They're innocent. They're just kids. You don't go around sexually abusing a child, let alone giving them a right-hander. And he thinks, oh yes, that's perfectly all right. And it's all right to look at. No, it is not all right to look at, because the more these people who think it's okay to look at these images, it doesn't matter if it's of kids or of some woman being raped or some poor creature being a victim of bestiality. When there's a market for something, when there's demand, there's a market, meaning they can make money off it, meaning it gets done more and more and more, and there's going to be more victims. And this is what a lot of people forget. And the fact of the matter is as well, what everyone's forgotten, at one time, if people were that way inclined, it was pretty clandestine and it wasn't really known about. But now, thanks to all of this smartphone technology and the internet,
and
it's at one time anyone looking for just bog standard Playboy, you had to go and look for a magazine on the top shelf, and everyone in the corner shop used to know. Oh yeah, your mum and dad will really know about that, and that was it. You know, you just didn't. You know, most boys didn't just went, oh God. No, that was the nearest they got. But now,
yeah, you're absolutely right.
And the more they see, the more extreme stuff. Not the stuff that you'd see on the films, you know, on the telly, which is mild.
They have to up the ante.
They up the ante, and it's extreme, extreme, extreme.
Yeah.
Be it one way, either adult, child, bestiality, zoophilia, whatever heinous version, which would make some porn stars go, I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. The more they watch it, the more they get hooked on it, the more they want the extreme stuff. And the extreme stuff in this case is paedophilia. And this is how people get hooked. Now, there are those people who are just hooked on the sex. They go, yeah, it's sex. Yeah, anything with sex doesn't matter. They'll two B's at it. They'll be going, yeah. But they just go, oh, I'm watching it on the internet. Somebody who's actually a paedophile is making all of these images. Not somebody, and people just go, oh, I'm watching, yeah. And you go, no, you are as bad as they are, if not worse. Did you?
You're providing the market.
Before?
Yeah, you're providing the market.
And this is the thing. And criminals, regardless, they don't care what they're flogging. It doesn't matter if it's drugs, counterfeit goods, hooky booze, you name it, sex, people trafficking, whatever. They will exploit that market till the nth degree. And the victims are just ignored. I mean, at one end you've got Epstein, at the other end you've got Huw Edwards. Both the same.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's the victims we've got to remember on this one. And also, which a lot of people have forgotten about, the internet providers and the websites that have the links. I mean, I know a lot of this would be on the dark web, but the likes of the anti-social media accounts, which are about to get hammered, judging by a case that's just come through the court.
Yeah, and quite rightly so.
Thank heavens.
Yeah.
They've got a lot to answer for. Also...
Yeah, you're not telling me they can't read the algorithm and know what it is.
Oh, I know. Oh, you know what it is? I've got friends of mine who work in IT, and they hate social media. And they hate the fact that a lot of this stuff, and between the software with the algorithms and then the hardware with the phones, because no one uses a desktop these days, it's all smartphones. They're all designed to be addictive using the same technology that's in a one-armed bandit. The same with the algorithms on these anti-social media accounts. And people get hooked. And at 1 minute, someone could be, I'm just going to look for, I don't know, I'm going to look for some jugs, thinking archaeology. And they end up with porn. And before they know it, they're down that rabbit hole looking at the extreme stuff. It can be as simple as that.
It could be, yeah. I mean, and I think you make excellent points as usual. I mean, this is why this is so serious, and the fact that Huw Edwards is planning a comeback means that he doesn't think it's that serious, right? Because no right-thinking person would think, oh, I can go back into the public eye after doing what he did. If he really thought about the repercussions of what he did, he's probably thinking, oh, all I did was look at a couple of pictures. But he's not thought through what makes that such a serious crime.
And this also leads on to the fact that if you take a look at public life in Britain today, and it's a word that most people don't like to mention, we are about as lily white and as moral and as ethical as a cesspit before when it's up to its guts. And it seems as if everyone seems to have forgotten what right and wrong is. Things like, you don't go around abusing the innocent, animals, women and girls. You don't go around treating widows and orphans like dirt, and you don't go around kicking the most vulnerable when they're down. And everyone's forgotten the rules of treating people as how you would wish to be treated yourself. Would you wish to be treated like that in that photograph? No. So why are you watching it? Why are you gawping at it? Why are you paying money to look at it? And the same goes for any form of bad behaviour and abuse. People have forgotten. It's all gone out the window. I mean, it's like with this, not quite the same horse, but the Tory MP today who was brought up on drugs charges saying, why should I be brought up on drugs charges? Simple, it's illegal. End of. I mean, having crystal meth and cannabis in your home,
yeah, well, exactly, and like you said,
they live in a different world to the rest of us.
Yeah, they do, and Huw Edwards clearly does. If he thinks that by releasing a documentary blaming mental health is going to get him back in the good books, he's an absolute fantasist. I mean, seriously, I can't even use the words I want to use. Sarah, thank you. Good to talk to you as ever. Gary says, although I haven't yet watched the Huw Edwards drama, he most definitely should not be allowed back onto TV. I very much doubt that any channel would employ him. His crimes are heinous. And that's from Gary in Glasgow. You never know these days, though. I don't think they would. I can't imagine it anyway. Brian is in Whitley Bay. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Petrie. A quick point about Huw Edwards, right? To me, he should have been jailed. I mean, and I'm really angry that he got off. He should have been sent to prison, to be quite honest. Anybody who does what he does has got intentions. What if nobody had caught that other guy who was providing that stuff to him? Where would Huw Edwards, where would he have took this situation to the next level? He would have been carrying on because he had that intention within him to do this kind of thing from the beginning. So where would he be like now if he hadn't been caught? What would he be doing right now? With these images and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also even with another young guy, grooming and bullying and pushing around, and paying money to do certain things for him. I mean, it's so low. I just. What about him using mental health as a not an excuse but an explanation as to why he did what he did?
Yeah, you can't excuse his own horrific behaviour. Putting mental health issues, it's just nonsense. I mean, but these internet companies, the Googles of this world and Meta and everything else, they should be stopping this stuff from going on their platforms. Full stop. So, I mean, images of anything like that should not be allowed to be on any platform. It should be blanked out with complete blackness, so there's nothing there. So if anybody types anything funny in like that, you just come with a blank screen with nothing on. Do you know what I mean? For these like people who do that kind of thing, but these big companies should be accountable because they are allowing people to download these images. I don't know whether they're AI or they're real images of people. Do you know what I mean? Most of the ones that are on the line are probably real images of poor victims and stuff. So these big companies should not be. Why aren't they actually? Why aren't these organisations, these big companies, stopping this? They should have people there to take this down straight away so nobody can get access to this kind of horrific material.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. The trouble is that these people will always try and find a way. They'll go on the dark web or whatever, but it would stop a lot of them who haven't got that technical know-how. I mean, as far as Huw was concerned, he had it sent to his mobile phone on WhatsApp, I think. But the young man who downloaded it for him and sent it to him clearly got it off the internet, what you're talking about. But yeah, more has got to be done. I mean, we are unfortunately a world leader in downloading child abuse images. A world leader in it, in Britain. There's more people do it here than practically anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he never ever comes back. I mean, and I do feel sorry for his wife. I do feel sorry for his kids because his kids that's their dad. I mean,
yeah, I think he's got 6. I think he's got 6 kids as well. I think it's quite a lot of kids.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them because they're obviously, people who know who they are, his like family, and I don't want to bring them into this situation. They'll be saying stuff, oh, your dad's this, your dad, and it must be horrific for them poor kids to hear that all the time. I mean, I do feel sorry for his family and that, and I really do. So they're also victims in all this. His wife and his family and everything.
Oh, they totally are. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got brothers and sisters. They're feeling the same.
His mum's still alive. His mum's still alive. Yeah, it is a tragedy for everybody apart from Huw. I don't feel any sympathy for him at all, and I don't think that anybody should, and I don't think that anyone should give him a chance and take him back.
Can I just mention another thing? I'm glad Ian Hunt is dead, by the way. When I heard about what happened to Ian Hunt, I know it's a completely different, so I'm just glad he's gone.
Who?
I hope he's in a bad place because he's an evil person as well. So, do you know what I mean?
Ian Huntley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I've no sympathy for him either. Don't care. It's just like, good.
Cheers.
Good. He's gone. Brian, thank you very much indeed. A quick break, I think, and then I'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie with you until the top of the hour. Loads of messages that I want to read out, as many as I can. Joanna says, Huw Edwards blaming mental health on his sick depravity. They should have put him where he belongs, in jail, and thrown away at the key. Sammy says, I take meds for depression and anxiety, and I can honestly say I've never looked at anyone under the age of 40 like that. I'm 52, by the way. No, he shouldn't even be in public, never mind on TV. And Fern in Glasgow said, Huw Edwards is mentally deranged if he thinks we will believe that his pedo exploits were just a mental health phase he was going through. He will be warped for life like the rest of them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's thinking of. Why would you think that we would be the least bit blooming interested as well? The other thing is, I just wanted to let you know, in pre-sentencing reports commissioned by Huw Edwards' defence, a consultant psychiatrist said the former presenter suffered from a major depressive disorder. He had a psychologically challenging upbringing with a domineering father. Listen to this. This was put in his defence. Followed by feelings of inferiority at the BBC because he did not have an Oxbridge degree. I worked at the BBC. I was a presenter, obviously not his standard presenter on the BBC. I didn't have an Oxbridge degree. I couldn't have given a damn about it. Anyway, Anthony is in Lancashire. Good morning, Anthony.
Morning, Petrie.
What do you make of this?
I think it's utter horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. The BBC was told 7 weeks before we found out that Huw Edwards had done all this. And clearly, in my opinion, Petrie, if you want to chip in at any point, is that Huw Edwards should have been arrested sooner.
Yeah, I think that they had to wait because there's the two cases, isn't there? The one that was the BBC were first alerted to by the family was the 17-year-old, for which he wasn't found criminally liable for anything. And then there was the second case where he was arrested because I think he was arrested for those images. So I'm a bit confused as to the timescale between those two. But whatever, I completely agree with what you're saying, though, in that the BBC felt that Huw Edwards was too big to fail. They thought they could protect him. They thought that somehow they could fix this instead of thinking of the victims. And that's where the BBC messed up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also the BBC have also messed up the whole scandal from start to finish.
Completely. Because they wanted to protect Huw. He was their golden boy.
Yeah, and also, why on earth did we let a presenter like Huw Edwards download those images? It is absolutely shocking.
I don't know what we could have done to stop him. I mean, but what do you make of the declaration that it was depression that caused him to behave like this?
Depression. I don't think. I'm absolutely shocked by it.
Yeah, I mean, to be accused. I mean, it just everybody with depression, doesn't do this. In fact, barely anybody does it, right? You would hope to believe that people with depression don't go around breaking the law, especially in this heinous way. And by saying it was depression, it kind of implicates that people with depression have got no control of themselves, which is not fair on other people with depression, right?
Yeah, it is. It's not fair at all, Petrie. And even to make matters worse, Petrie, if he's suffering from from mental health issues, which he was, he should have sought help in the first place.
Completely right. Absolutely, absolutely. And the fact that he was, you know, on air the whole time, he didn't, you know, I mean, it's all very well. A lot of people look fine when they're not. But, you know, it's a very high pressure job. If he was suffering with that level of depression, he should have been off air and getting help. Completely agree with you, Anthony. Thank you. Good point. And I do think the BBC completely... Well, I more than dropped the ball. I mean, don't forget, they'd already got Jimmy Savile as an example, right? It's not like they didn't have any other example, but they just felt he was too big to fail. He was their star. And a lot of his bad behaviour that was reported at the time, before all of this came out, people turned a blind eye to. And there were rumours about him being a little bit too friendly with some of the younger men in the newsroom. Unsubstantiated, but they were rumours and they were going around, they were knocking around. And that was brushed under the carpet. So the BBC facilitated this. They allowed him to behave in the way that he did until he was finally caught in a way that they could no longer protect him. Chalky says, surely we've got more interesting subjects to make documentaries about than Huw Edwards. Yeah, I wouldn't watch a documentary by Huw Edwards on Huw Edwards, I can tell you that. He never looked comfortable on screen, dead boring and slightly perspiring. The BBC have no nous. They couldn't spot a burglar if he had a mask on and a stripy T-shirt and carrying a big bag with swag written on it. Yeah, I've got to wonder, haven't you? Final call goes to Liam, who's in Accrington. Liam, good morning to you.
Good morning, Petrie. It's been a long time since we spoke.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say fair play to Martin Clunes for playing this role. Because it's a dangerous role to play, isn't it, I suppose?
I completely agree, Liam. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a big step, wasn't it, to play a paedophile on a...
Yeah, but fair play to him. And also, his publicist, Huw Edwards' publicist, there's something he's not telling, is it? Well, that's my personal opinion. He's just, he's been on the news today, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think he's not telling the whole truth.
There's some, it was just the most bizarre thing for anybody to do, to go out there and try and defend a convicted sex offender.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's very, very strange. And he's saying that a major broadcaster has already approached him. This is the Publicist. And they've had an offer, and we've been offered stupid money for photographs, but I would probably do it independently. A lengthy sit-down interview,
Yeah.
like that conducted by Amal Rajan, is also under consideration.
Yeah, and another thing.
And he's going to make money out of being a paedophile. That's so wrong.
And another thing, Petrie, he's playing the mental health card. I'm not being funny, but last week I had a complete mental breakdown, and the NHS wouldn't help me whatsoever. They said I'm not entitled to any help. So what the hell is Huw Edwards doing?
Yeah, I mean, he can afford all the help that he needs. His pension is around 230 grand a year, which he's entitled to now, and then he'll get his state pension. I think we should be able to take state pension away from people like that.
Most definitely, yeah.
It's just not reasonable.
It's just put him in jail. Put him in jail. That's all I say.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Because he's just not a nice person whatsoever for what he did.
No, it's absolutely disgusting.
That's me being polite.
Well, thank you for being polite. I've had to be polite through all of this as well. It's very difficult. But listen, I really appreciate what you're saying. I think you're absolutely right with Martin Clunes, because he played it so well.
He played it very well.